Wasn't that a phenomenal film? We're so honored to have that here in Boston for the U.S. premiere. And we'd like to make an announcement. We don't usually do till the end of the festival, but Damien Lee will be receiving the Best Director of the Boston Film Festival. Here with us.
No, we're gonna give it to the pro.
Great, thank you, ladies. So let me welcome Damien Lee and the cast onto stage, and then we can open it up to Q&A. Damien.
Oh, great, excellent. With a quarter, that's great. I want to introduce you to the cast, first of all. Blair Dance, who plays Andy Garcia's wife in the film. And Elsa Mesa, who played Calder, the shit heel. Feel free to fire questions of these two or myself, whatever. Any open for form is good. Yeah.
First of all, that was an amazing film, I gotta say. I was wondering, is this getting a wide release or is it
We'll start with a platform release in January and see how much traction we get or don't get. The majority of big theatrical film these days are kind of like theme park rides. Blow a lot of stuff up and everything. So we'll see how much traction this gets. But it'll be coming out in January, and I think it's going to open in 10 or 15 cities. And if it's supported and by both the media and by the attendance of the film, hopefully it'll broaden a little bit out and get it in more cities. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
So question up front here? Yeah.
How did you become aware of the situation and you moved from Peru to Ecuador? How does Ecuador feel about being moved to Ecuador?
I'll go ahead and repeat the question so everyone's here.
Yeah, sure.
How did you become aware of the situation? And
And how did I feel?
How did Ecuador feel about it?
I've been working on a film for 4 years now with the United Nations dealing with their 8 Millennium Goals, and which are very noble goals. They want to accomplish these goals by 2015. They're small goals: eradication of all major diseases, education for all children in the world, pay parity for women and men across the board. They're just small goals, but they feel that the major obstacle to accomplishing these goals is chaos in the world. And when there's unequal distribution of basic natural resources, such as water or food, it creates chaos. So in looking at the problems of water on a global basis, I discovered 3 really interesting things. One, I discovered that there's a phenomenon called meromictic lakes. Lakes can explode. 1 in every 1,000 to 1,300 lakes is capable of actually exploding. The last time this happened at any major substantial note was in 1984, Lake Niles in Cameroon. Carbon dioxide exploded from the bottom of the lake, sucked all the oxygen out of the air around the lake area, and 1,800 people, plus all livestock and animals, were killed instantaneously, which is an interesting thing. And so this happens when whatever, it can be a geologic formation, but the waters don't mix, and gases get caught in the bottom. That was one interesting thing. The other interesting thing was the skirmishes, the endless wars between China, Pakistan, and India over control of the Himalayas. That's often referred to as the third polar region because so much fresh water is locked up there. So the China in 1962 intruded by, I think, 150 miles in India. They agreed to retreat, but only to back 100 miles, 160, 150, whatever it was, because that gave them control of the Tarim watershed, which is the primary watershed, one of the primary watersheds in the Himalayas. And the third thing that I found out was that private corporations were moving into third world nations and not so far from first world nations and doing deals with corrupt governments to buy all the water rights in perpetuity. So it would go something like this: you come down to Peru, you would be representing the company in question is allegedly Bechtel in this situation in Peru, and they go in and speak to the president or the prime minister and say, Mr. President, we're going to buy all your water rights for now and the future for your country. We're going to give you $100 million. Well, that's not very much. Mr. President, you have $100 million in your Swiss bank account. Oh, that's a great deal then. And they sign it up. And as we talked before the show, there was revolts happening in the street about this. So anyway, so I began to look at this on a global basis with the UN, and these things came up. And the situation with Peru was amazing. I mean, how can one private company buy all the water rights? So, and then because of possible lawsuits, we couldn't do it in Peru. So we switched it in Ecuador. We haven't heard from Ecuador yet, so we're going to.
There you go.
Sorry, there was a question back up here.
Is the Francisco Francis character based on a real person?
Well, it's based on the French.
Yeah, it's based. The character of Francisco Francis is based on several. It's an amalgam of several characters involved in Amnesty, Greenpeace, Rainbow Warrior. So he's sort of an archetype of the militant eco warrior. Yes.
I noticed that the army that was in Ecuador had a different flag, I think, on their right arm. I was just curious about what flag that was.
Well, again, that's something that falls in the land of lawsuits and being protected in the film. So that's an original emblem that our production department, art department came up with.
Good question.
Yes.
The brown shirt.
It was an excellent film, and I was wondering how were you able to attract the directors on stage as well as Forrest, Anita, and Andy to the film and to the screenplay. And I did notice that Andy is one of the executives.
Yes. Andy was the first actor that came on board, Andy is definitely a man of great principle. He has 4 children. He grew up in Havana. His family left during the revolt and the communist takeover. So he has very strong feelings on political concerns. I mean, he leans very right in actuality, probably more right than I lean. I lean probably left. So it makes some interesting conversations. But because of his political awareness and because of his family concerns, aspects of environmental nature are important to him. So we structured a deal with him to participate in the film. He was kind of a cornerstone, and Andy's a very respectable guy. Aside from being a good actor, we never have seen his life paraded out in tabloids. And so he's a gentleman and a man of very good character and good moral fiber. And so he was able to help attract Forrest. And then also in this, before we did this film, there was a film that we were packaging called Four Kings, dealing with the war between the French and England for control of North America and the seduction of the Indians to fight for them and the destruction of their environment. And Eva was very interested in coming aboard and doing the starring roles. And this film happened to go first before Four Kings. So he said, geez, I'd love to play Forrest's wife, that would be great. Forrest said, Forrest is a very spiritually conscious man. So in his life, his personal life, he's all about service to his fellow men, service to his family, service to a higher cause. So this appealed to his basic principles in life as well, plus his schedule fit.
And we'll send that question to the cast here today. So what attracted you to the film?
Well, I've been married to this man.
She didn't have a
so-
choice.
I don't know. Worked with him before. I thought he was a good director. Liked the material. It wasn't bad being Andy Garcia's wife, to be honest. There you go.
Hell, I am Doug Calder. I'm kidding. I love the script. I mean, I love the script. And my favorite line in the script is when you say that Chairman Mao had it wrong and Gandhi had it right. I mean, I really was very moved by the script. I mean, when a job comes along that the material also enlightens and educates the audience, it's a gift, because you take a lot of jobs that you take them for the money, you take them to keep working, you take them for, but something like this was just, I was attracted to it right away.
Al, I gotta tell you, he read the script every day during production. Every day. He was a pain in the ass. And I read it again last night, and I think we should. ship has sailed. But he honestly read the script more than anybody else in the entire production.
I was taught that when I went to school in Los Angeles, that you read the script every morning. I'm not joking. And when you rehearse for a play, you read the script every morning before the rehearsal. It does amazing things. You like see so many things.
Definitely passed.
So I was saying, Al, the ship has sailed. He goes, okay. Yeah, but. So it was an interesting, it was a very interesting endeavor. And when we shot down in the Dominican Republic, it was interesting because we were in the jungle. And we were a part of the jungle that was surrounded by some pretty questionable towns. So we actually had a private security force of 22 people. And then what we had done was hired the Dominican Army to work as the army in the film. And then we hired a lot of our soldiers to be the stunt people in the film. Because, they're pretty comfortable with falling down and getting dirty and all that stuff. So we had this big army in the woods. We weren't that far from the Haitian border. So, we were thinking about, hey, maybe we should just march right into Haiti. Stage a coup.
There you go.
Any other, yeah?
How long was shooting?
It wasn't that long. It was 24 days, which was really short for the amount of production value we have in there. But I mean, it was when we were shooting in the Dominican Republic, it was so intense. The shooting days, we shot 7 days down, and it felt like 2 weeks. I mean, it was Andy left the day he left. The next day he was in Miami having lunch with his mother, and he fell asleep. He passed out right at the lunch table and fell in his food. So yeah, it was. I mean, you can run a production 50 days and running it 2 cameras and shooting 2 pages a day or whatever, or you can run a lot of cameras and have splinter units, which we did in this. Some days we had 3 units running in 3 different locations. So I mean, and that requires a lot of confidence in the other people you're working with, and also just letting it go a little bit, letting the river flow with its own course.
What cameras did
We used the Alexa. We had 2 Alexa, and we had 3 Reds. We had a ton of GoPros and some 7.5s as well. So a pretty mixed bag, which made for a pretty complicated workflow. But we had a great editor. I'd be really remiss in a couple of things. One, we had a great editor whose name is Bill Steinkamp. He's been nominated for 3 Academy Awards. He cut Tootsie. He cut Scent of Woman, which is one of my all-time favorite films. He cut Out of Africa, and he cut Fabulous Baker Boys, amongst many other films. And we had a great composer, Jonathan Goldsmith, who is just a fabulous composer. And we had a fabulous producer, and Gary Housen, who did the series The Tutors. And Gary's such a hard-working guy. I mean, this guy has no ego at all. It's amazing. Like, he says every day he got into playing whack-a-mole, solving problems, hitting a thing until it goes away. And he was behind the camera every shot for the whole thing. So it was great. Neva was no trouble. I mean, she was so great to work with. She'd come to set, 2 minutes to do her makeup. Okay, boys, let's shoot. And she'd be riding around on an ATV or a motorcycle, and Gary would get her off that. Get her off that. If she hurts herself, we are ruined. Get her off that. Anyway, so it was pretty interesting. And at the beginning of the film, we saw we had these fires happening. These fires got completely out of control. At one point, they were 3 or 4 stories high. I mean, it was just a nightmare. I mean, if we had done this, in Boston or Toronto, we all would have gone to jail. I mean, it was. These cars the flames were literally 3 or 4 stories high. It was amazing.
Jurassic Park.
Yeah, exactly. So it was, the production experience itself was great, and it was great shooting in the Dominican Republic as well. And not that I know much Spanish, I know one phrase, como se dice, how do you say this? I walk around all day long and say, como se dice? Yeah.
I just want to say there's a real story to be told about transnational corporations' exploitation of water resources in Latin America. I'm not sure is it, but I admire you for the sentiment of trying to get the story across. But I want to point out in your background remarks, you were talking about Bolivia, not Peru. That's where that came in and was thrown out by the social movements in Cochabamba, the water wars.
Well, thank you. No, I thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
The film reminded me a lot of the Constant Gardener, Traffic.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if those were.
They were instrumental. A big film for me was Michael Clayton in terms of the influence.
The office scenes really had that.
Yeah, exactly. So Michael Clayton was a big influence to me in that regard. And the other two films you mentioned as well. So they were, all of them were Traffic, but in terms of filming styles.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, how did you go about as a director making sure all the narratives fit together effortlessly by the end?
Well, I had a really good editor.
Yeah.
So we shot so much stuff. I mean, the digital cameras are great to shoot with, but you just shoot so much stuff, and it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. We just did a film this summer in July and August, and we shot the equivalent of over 700,000 feet. That's the equivalent of 7 movies.
Right.
And we just took it and dumped it on the editor's desk. So, and this film was up around that level as well.
So let me extend that. So was there any notable scene at the cutting room floor that you?
I don't think any notable scene, but certainly all the scenes were compacted and overlapped.
Right.
So, we might have taken the dialogue from one scene and played it over the image of another scene to compact and make it interlace.
For the story, right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's an optimal length of running time for film, and I'm not sure, it's very subjective, but I for me personally, somewhere between, 98 to 110 minutes is kind of, after that, unless it's an absolute, and there's been films obviously that have had tremendous production value and can run longer, I mean, Blood Diamond being one of them, that had an actual weight in some sense, so.
In the front.
Hi, I really enjoyed the movie, but I was wondering, since the United States and United States companies have been more involved in South America than Canadian companies or the Canadian government has been, why did you choose to center it in Canada rather than the United States?
Well, we felt that it was, again, better legally for the film in terms of not getting sued. So we had a fictitious company in Canada be the culprit instead of a company here that was actually the culprit. And there's enough.
Like Nestle?
Yeah, like Nestle. Yeah, exactly. Like Nestle.
Will you be able to use how the story was inspired in the promotional marketing of the film?
Well, we hope so. I mean, it certainly makes for good discussion and good print.
Sure.
I have a question about just the intensity of the material. Did you ever look over your shoulder and worry that, there was any risk to your team, any revenues?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why the names are all changed and it gets very fictionalized. Because this is, as the lady just aptly pointed out, there was a bunch of stuff happened in Bolivia and Peru, and a number of countries involved and companies involved. And again, we just decided to leave Michael Clayton, where Michael Clayton became subject to assassination by the corporation of the film because he's about to spill the beans on the corporation. I mean, I don't think this is two theories of history: happenstance and conspiracy, right? And I think more often than not, conspiracy probably plays a major hand in the course of our history.
And one of the acting was for these two, just right across the board.
I agree. I agree.
Acting was fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, we have time for one more question. One more question on the floor. Oh, over the corner.
What attracted you to tell this particular story? There are so many instances of injustice around the world. What really motivated you to tell this particular story?
As we were saying earlier when I was speaking to the UN, and their theory being that the obstacle to accomplishing great goals and strides towards peace on a global basis is chaos, and problems that generate chaos are primarily those that just deal with the lack of basic necessities: food, water, shelter, clothing. There's a really interesting book called Disposable People, which deals with the aspect of disposable slavery, which is very prevalent throughout the world. Estimates say that there are anywhere from 27 million to 250 million slaves in the world. And it's the worst form of slavery now because if people don't need to own people, they can employ them for a rainy season, and they're working just for shelter and food. And at the end of the rainy season, they're thrown away to fend for themselves. So looking at man's humanity to man and what that's about and how we can help that, I think that's really part of the journey of life, and the journey of life is really becoming more conscious. There's a great writer by the name of Joseph Campbell. If you haven't read him, I really, really recommend reading him. He has a seminal book that came out in 1949, Hero with 1,000 Faces. And many years ago, 15, 16, 17 years ago, someone told me that, yeah, when Lucas and Spielberg did the first films, they hired a spiritualist to work with them so their stories would have an underpinning of spiritual aspect that the audience connect with on an unconscious level. I said, get the hell out of here. Well, the more work I did that actually is the case, and the person that Lucas used in this capacity was Joseph Campbell. So, and his theory is that it's just all about the march towards consciousness. All of us becoming more conscious and working towards consciousness, and then anything gets in the way of that consciousness will sooner or later be dealt with. And the UN's thesis is, and I tend to agree with it, is that the lack of the basic necessities generate concern, chaos, hatred, prejudice, and everything else. Good question.
Great. Well, that wraps up our Q&A session. Damien, thank you so much for bringing your film to the Boston Film Festival.
Great festival. We look forward to being back next time.
Okay, enjoy the rest of the festival, everyone. Thank you very much.